welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'm going to be your astrologer today. I'm very excited to talk to you guys about this impending new moon that we are going to be having in the sign of Cancer. So let's go ahead and get into it. Let me pull up a couple things because I'm doing some stuff a little bit different today. Obviously, usually I film my moon videos with the full setup, but having to kind of create content before I leave town for a couple days. So let's go ahead and get into it. We're going to have the new moon in Cancer that is going to be taking place on June 28th, 2022. This will be at 7:52 p.m. and this is going to be Pacific time, or this will be taking place at 10:52 p.m. Eastern time. Obviously, check your time zones, adjust accordingly. This is an interesting one, and there's a reason why I wanted to get more specific with like actually showing you guys some of the aspects in regards to this lunation. I'll also be pulling cards and talking about how it is going to affect each and every one of the 12 signs. As always, I am a Western astrologer, so I'm going to be really focusing on Western prediction. You're going to make the most of my predictions by looking at your ascendant. So you definitely can read your ascendant, your sun, your moon, whatever you feel like you resonate with the most. But I would recommend listening to your ascendant sign so you have an idea of exactly where in your life these new seeds are being planted. Now, to do that, you have to check out an online birth chart calculator, input your birthday, time, date, location, and you're going to cast your chart, and it's going to show you exactly where Cancer is in your horoscope. So even if you're not a Cancer, many people are surprised to find out that we have placements of each and every one of the 12 signs. And new moons always represent a new seed. So we are setting intentions revolving around that particular sign's themes, and then the housing placement in your chart is going to talk about where you're setting these intentions. So if you're just joining me, if you're new to my channel, welcome. Do give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, let me know where are you tuning in from, and yeah, consider hitting the subscription button so you are alerted as to when I have new videos coming out. So back to this new moon. So, you know, obviously, like I said, new moons are new intentions, but the sign of Cancer is ruled by the moon, right? It rules moods, the home, roots, our heritage, our homeland, and it's a cardinal energy. So we are just coming off of the summer solstice here in the Northern Hemisphere, and there's just real emphasis on where we are taking action. If you guys saw my summer solstice video where I looked at that particular transit and what it says for the next 3 months, it's very evident it's going to be quite active, taking action revolving around our home, our family. I'm anticipating it's going to bring up some very big emotions for people. And yeah, so if you missed that, make sure that you check it out. But since the solstice, we have actually seen that the moon has kind of come into the new moon phase. So it has represented the last couple of days of closing out, clearing out, preparing, getting quiet, and getting ready to reflect on what it is that we really want to nurture in our lives. Now, Cancer is a sign that's associated with the archetype of the mother. It can also be associated with like a caretaking position, protector, anything in relation to like this real divine feminine counterpart, right? Because the sun is like a solar energy. It's more masculine. It's more conscious. The moon is subconscious. So we may find that as a result of this lunation, the more that we can get quiet and the more that we can be reflecting on being conscious of our emotions, the better handle we're going to have on our actions, right? Because the new moon is the cycle that happens once a month where the sun and the moon come together, they merge, and it is this fresh blank slate where we're able to plant seeds, where we can consciously and unconsciously focus on setting some kind of new intention. So the difference between a new moon and a full moon is the new moon, we are going to get quiet and hold space for this stuff. Then over the next 2 weeks, we are going to see the lunar cycles build into what will then be a full moon in the sign of Capricorn. Now that's going to be obviously about 2 weeks away, but I can't really talk about this new moon without talking about some of the transits that will come after this. So I don't want to get ahead of myself. I want to stick with this first. So we've got this new moon on the 28th. You guys have the time. It's going to be at 7 degrees and change of Cancer. So if you have any particular placements from 6 to 9 degrees of the cardinal signs, that's Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, 6 to 9. So that's a sun, moon, rising. If you have a personal planet around 6 to 9 degrees of Cancer, it's extra important. If it is your birthday or roundabout a day before or a day after, you're having a new moon birthday, which means it's a brand fresh new year for you. Everything that you're doing is going to be totally different. And it's a wonderful time to consider getting a reading so you're on the up and up for what is coming in the immediate near future. Wow. Right before the solstice, the energy was really wild for me. I feel like that moon hitting the late degrees of Pisces and also coming into a square with the 29-degree Gemini sun, I felt like a crazy person. It was like I had this epic meltdown and was like, what's going on? Everything's changing. Ah! And maybe part of it's because I have 0 degrees on all 4 angles, but I certainly felt like that meltdown of like, oh, shift is happening. Like something's coming. And it makes sense now kind of looking at, this chart that there is a great bit of positivity, right? There's excitement because we're seeing squares to Jupiter. But I'm really putting a lot of emphasis on the area where the new moon is. Specifically, let me show you guys here. Specifically, so this is the new moon, okay? And it is in conjunction to the asteroid goddess Lilith. And I definitely felt like I was channeling my inner Lilith energy quite a bit the other night. I just freak out. So in many ways, a new moon in Cancer is already extremely emotional. We know that like a crab, when you kind of disrupt it, when it's in its safe space, or you try to kind of coax it out of its shell, or pull something out of its home, it's going to be reactionary. It's going to get defensive. And so we can kind of see that energy, especially as we're getting to like the day or two prior to this new moon. But Lilith being conjunct within a degree is a very, very, very potent aspect. Now, I guess the lighter side of Lilith is that there are going to be lots of energies focusing on divine feminine energy, and where feminine energy can be very raw. So we're probably going to see a lot of Lilith archetypes relating to mothers. So women who get angry because they're being told they shouldn't breastfeed in public. Women who are getting angry because they feel like, they're being challenged when it comes to whether or not they can protect their home or their family or their children. Now, it's not limited to women, but definitely when we have the moon and Lilith in the same sign, we are having to face our fears, right? And oftentimes I've seen that Lilith isn't necessarily real fears. It's just fears and anything in relation to something that can be misconstrued. So, moms who get frustrated because of the expectations that they have, people who are afraid because they're feeling like their home or their families are somehow threatened or not safe or under attack. Cancer deals with, it's kind of similar to Taurus, like creature comforts, but more in a sense of, do we have a roof? Do we have food on our table? Are we able to feel like we can protect our home and our families? And how are we feeling within our country of origin? So I think that we're going to see some real inflamed reactions and people who are just being extremely patriotic to the point of almost like excessiveness. And that can materialize with the squares that we're seeing to Jupiter in Aries. This is an exact square. As people who are being self-righteous. Now, obviously, Jupiter in Aries is very quick moving. It definitely deals with self-governing, our belief systems, our legal systems, our personal rights. So similar to what I saw in the solstice chart, this is kind of insinuating that hot topics for the better part of the next 2 immediate weeks, but really the next 6 months, is anything in relation to our personal rights when it comes to having children, having the things that we need for security, being able to protect our rights to ownership, home ownership, owning of land, and anything in that regard. Now it is at a 7, so 7s are going to deal with Libra, so it's more about our relationship with our homes, our relationship with our family, our relationship with our past, and whether or not we're feeling like we need to fight, right, Jupiter and Aries, for our rights, whether or not we are acting aggressively and defensively. That's another way that this could be playing out as well. So you guys really want to watch for that. And whenever we see the sun and moon come together, it's this very much what you see is what you get, right? There's not like a lens or a filter on it. And if anybody knows anything about Cancer placements, part of their strength comes from their emotional strength and their ability to really dig deep and really focus on honoring and nurturing and being able to remember where we came from. So that can be in a family sense, that can be in a life sense, that can also be reflecting on the past. I can only kind of reflect on some of the things that I've seen recently, and I've heard and been really in tune with a lot of the videos and stuff that are kind of coming out in independent media in regards to the concern revolving around farming, and that we are going to be seeing supposedly, and the astrology does reflect this, some major issues revolving around not having enough food or having food shortages. We are also seeing homelessness like all over the map. We are starting to see people who are kind of getting iffy about whether or not they're able to afford their cost of living due to, inflation and everything else that's going on in the world right now. So certainly we can see a lot of like really heated behaviors where people are acting out, and Jupiter and Aries can bring more violence. It can also bring more people to feeling like they need to defend themselves, or that they need to go and educate themselves about their rights so they can protect their bottom line. So there's big emotions going on, and it's not just relating to this, because in a way when we have a new moon, like I said, it can take 6 months until we get to the fall and we have that full moon that's going to be taking place in Cancer, and not even the fall, the full moon in Cancer that we're going to be having closer to December. So let me backtrack a little bit. We talked about, the sun-moon conjunction. We talked about the square to Jupiter. Lilith still being in the mix, I think, is really encouraging us to face our fears. I would say just generally, because this is an indication of people who may be feeling the need to instigate either conflict or lawsuits or anything in relation to legalities, be very careful. Because I think Lilith can kind of play a role in people getting hyper reactionary or hysterical, or doing things out of feeling the need to protect and leaning more into that square to Jupiter. So like lawsuits, class action lawsuits, people who are more prone to wanting to, just jump into legal situations, which it's going to be hard to ignore, but by the same token, I feel like really know what you're getting into before you're participating in anything. Really know your rights, right? Especially if you're dealing with any of the situations that I'm discussing. Now, in the background with some of this stuff, we've also got here we go. Pull up my notes. Ceres is also kind of in the mix here. Lots of asteroid goddesses, where Lilith deals more with like that raw femininity, addressing our fears, how we're working through anger or rage, or the more kind of like animalistic kind of tendencies. Ceres is going to be talking more about crops. It's about wheat. It's about grain. It can also be about anything relating to milk or dairy. So I'm wondering, is there going to be more coming up about shortages in relation to these topics? Now, Ceres is known for that, Greek Roman mythology. Her daughter was Persephone. Long story short, she, on the positive side, can kind of deal with bringing in life and being able to grow things and being able to be in tune with nature and ensuring that we have everything we need to feel nurtured. the darker side of Ceres energy can be very much tied to loss, isolation, things that are being taken away, mothers being ripped away from children, abduction. You know, Hades abducted Persephone, took her to the underworld, basically tried to feed her pomegranates, was unsuccessful in getting her to eat all of the fruit of the underworld, and the other gods had to kind of step in and kind of broker a deal, and had to explain to Hades, you know, the crops are all dying, Ceres is depressed, you know, you need to bring Persephone back. So they ended up working out this deal where she would spend half of the year in the underworld, basically being the queen of the underworld, sitting with Hades, and the other 6 months of the year she was above ground, and she was with Demeter or Ceres. And we saw everything come back to life, and everything would grow, and everybody had food and crops. So she became this goddess that was very much associated with mothers and the cycles, right, of life. You know, the growth of the wheat, and then being able to kind of cut it all down and start again and start fresh, and see the dead fields. So I've seen it go either way. I feel like it's also particularly interesting that we see that this trine from Ceres is going to the south node. Now that does represent loss, right? Letting go, the pain of childbirth, the fear of whether or not we can feed children, or whether or not we can nourish our families, or, you know, pay our debts or our mortgages, because Scorpio could be about money owed. We also see Ceres on the flip side, also making trines here from Neptune. So this is essentially, you know, a grand water trine. So there is this grief, loss, feeling of emotion. We've seen also in the last week or so major floods that have been happening in the United States. If you guys have taken a look at what was happening near the national park, it's the earth, I think, responding to some of the stuff that's going on and some of the cries for help that we're experiencing. It's really, you know, kind of expected. We thought this was going to happen with having Neptune in the later degrees, especially earlier in the year when we had Jupiter in Pisces, that we were going to have flooding. I feel like the Neptune trine, the South Node trine Ceres is like the pain that we're having for Mother Earth, and this release of emotion and the flooding of the waters is that the Earth is responding to some of the grief and some of the things that we are having, and perhaps even part of the ways that we are treating our planet, unfortunately. Now in the background, let me undo this for you guys so you can see more. Thank you for your patience. I'm not used to doing it this way. Usually I have my pen. We also have some particularly gnarly aspects. Now I will be touching on this in my July month ahead, but it's definitely something to be noted because it is heating up big time. This is Mars in Aries coming into a hard 90-degree angle, a square with Pluto in Capricorn. So this is like a very feminine moon, right? And then we see like a very aggressive, angry Mars type energy where Mars is challenging Pluto. Know that it's in the skies, right? It's going to be in the skies very heavily from the 28th really through the first couple of days of July. Now Mars, the god of heat, passion, war, conflict, strife, aggression, coming into a challenge with Pluto seems to insinuate that there can be some very visceral, violent reactions. I don't like saying this, I'm not trying to incite violence, I'm just letting you guys know if you happen to be doing anything from the end of June into the first couple of days in July, be aware of your surroundings. Anything relating to stuff that's hot, sharp, power struggles are kind of what's expected, especially with cardinal squares. Squares do force things to happen in general, but when it's a cardinal square, there's almost like this initiation and there's like a domino effect of things that are being challenged. So I'll talk about that in my monthlies, and I'll explain to you guys where that's taking place in your life. But yeah, that Mars square Pluto in the background, which is going to be further kind of triggered once we see the days following this new moon, that the moon goes deeper into the sign of Cancer, which will oppose Pluto and also square Mars. So this is like very quiet up until the new moon, and then right after the new moon happens, we see some of these really complex T-squares, which I'm anticipating is going to bring some really swift and potentially like violent actions. And it can be military mobilization. It can be that there is some like perhaps, you know, deadly attack or something in relation to military, or anything in regards to anyone wearing you know, uniforms. Pluto and Capricorn could be certainly people who are in the services, but it could also be police officers or anything of that nature. Aries is the individual, so my concern is that there's going to be some kind of backlash towards the government, backlash towards police officers, something like that may come about as a result of things that are taking place in the very end of June, the very beginning of July. So something else that we've got going on here, here we go, is, like I said, that new moon is also going to be in a trine to Vesta. Lots of asteroid goddesses going on. It's like Lilith is talking to Vesta, and it's also having conversations with Ceres, you know, and they're all kind of chatting with each other and talking about how we're feeling emotionally about what's going on, I think, in the world. Now, Vesta deals with kind of keeping the home fire burning. So Vesta is about devotion, anything in relation to prayers, sacrifice. You know, the Vestal virgins took a vow of celibacy to be able to ensure that the sacred fires of ancient cities were burning. And just that offering that we had to Vesta and letting her know that we wanted to continue to kind of like keep that light on and stay connected. Now, the sun and the moon in trine to Vesta, I think, is getting us thinking about how are we heating our homes? How are we powering our homes? What are we doing to bring about more prayer and hope and devotion in regards to our homes? I have 4 planets in my 4th house. I feel like I have a very strong Cancer signature. I have Jupiter in Cancer as well. Something that's always been really important for me has always been having a home altar and cleaning the home and cleansing the home. Not just scrubbing floors and mopping, but also making a conscious effort to feed my home. What am I feeding my home? How am I giving appreciation for what my home has given me and what it's done for me? And that can be from me, you know, opening up all the doors and windows and starting in the back of the house and mopping all the floors and scrubbing everything, and then, you know, sweeping and everything, getting it out the front. That's my more magical practice. I like to start in the back, move all the way to the front. So if that's something that that's something you can do, certainly just right around the time of the new moon is clean your home. But we don't just want to clean it, right? We don't want to just clean it and dust and kind of let it be. We also don't want to just like smudge and then be like, okay, cool, like we have good vibes now. We need to feed the home. So something that I like to do, obviously, this is your like little warning, like be safe when you're doing this, but I like to do something called a white fire. And so I'll take a pot that is fire safe, something I'm not going to eat out of. You can also use a cauldron, or you can, if you like to use like the abalone shells. I like to take a pile of salt, put a little rubbing alcohol, and then I put either fresh or dried herbs, depending on what you want to use. Rosemary, you can use sage, you can use thyme, rose, lavender. Sometimes I'll use like juniper. It really just depends. And I will put that somewhere in the center of the home, and I will strike a match, and I will let the alcohol burn on top of the salt with the herbs to feed the home. And I do that to work with the spirits within the home and just give thanks for them keeping me safe, protecting me, guiding me, letting me know, you know, when there's like weird little spiritual intruders or things that are around that shouldn't be around, and keeping me safe as I do the work that I'm doing. Whether you honor this in a spiritual sense or not, I bring this up because it is Vesta and Pisces, so it can be about some kind of spiritual clearing of the home. But it can also be something as simple as throwing a little bit of sea salt and some fresh lemon into your mop bucket and cleaning the floors. Something that's going to energetically clear the energy, especially if we are finding that right around the time of this new moon shaping up, we're scared. right? We don't know if things are going to be okay, or we're looking for a little bit of assistance and hope from the cosmos to be able to kind of step in and help us restore the faith. So adding a little bit of magic into this mix can be really, really, really helpful. All right, so let's now see what else we got going on here. So we talked about the sun and the moon square to Jupiter in Aries and how that's going to bring about big emotions, the trine to Vesta. We've also got in the background, these are some of like the lesser kind of aspects, but they're worthy of mentioning. The new moon is going to be semi-sextile Venus in Gemini. And that's basically, I think, kind of saying like, you know, Venus is looking out for us. I really like Venus in this position because it does talk about devotional work, anything in regard to like reading scripture, reading prayer, being able to read sacred texts, being able to do anything that can be honoring Venus. And like Venus 12 houses from the sun is going to have like a feeling that's similar to like a Venus Neptune or a Venus in Pisces. So it can be about finding ways to work with our subconscious to be able to find the right words to calm our minds. It can be also about reading poetry. It can be about writing. It can be about anything in regards to our dreams. All of the water signs are very intuitive. It's really in a variation of different levels, and it plays out in a different way. But I think that Cancer has this inherent internal knowing sometimes of what's coming. And so that's why Cancer energy or really heavy fourth house or lunar energy can be a little, you know, Looney Tunes sometimes. And I say that lovingly, but there can be this sense of like, oh, something's coming, and you want to kind of get into like protection mode. And this is going to be really, really magnified because it's saying that this is going to play out for the better part of the immediate next 2 weeks. So it's important for those of us who do happen to have like a little bit more sensitivity to some of these energies to practice staying calm and grounding ourselves and grounding our minds and not immediately rushing or jumping into action, because in some ways when the sun squares Jupiter, we can have a tendency to overreact, or we can have a tendency to be like a little overly optimistic, and we can kind of shoot or aim really high and then find that as some of these transits play out, we may actually find that we are a little too overly optimistic and we didn't quite hit that mark. And maybe we kind of leaped before we looked, so to say, you know, because I could see as a result of this transit, a lot of people are going to get really worked up and they're going to have a lot of stuff to say, whether they're sharing their opinions about what it means to be an American, or they're sharing their opinions about the rights that we should have to protect ourselves. And I think you're going to hear a lot in regards to individual citizens' rights, especially in particular connection to like laws and land ownership, what you can and cannot do with land, things shifting, revolving around the purchase or the sales of private land, and if that is being limited. And also I think just our relationships with anything in regards to protection. So obviously there's been a lot going on with like people debating, you know, what is the right to bear arms, and can that be infringed? And I think we're going to see more coming up about gun rights and regulations as well. Now, something else that's kind of happening is that we see Uranus is inching closer and closer and closer to its conjunction with the North Node. That's a whole thing in itself. I've done a couple videos if you guys haven't seen that already. I just did one with 111 Anna from the YouTube channel, and we talked a little bit about the Uranus North Node conjunction, what it can mean, and talking a little bit about some of the times that we've seen it throughout our lives, and we reflected on it. I am going to be hosting a webinar pretty soon, so I'll be dropping that link in the next week or so for a webinar that I'm having in July that's going to be live, where you can come and tune in, hear my lecture. I'm going to create PDFs and all kinds of things to give you guys, so you're aware of some of the world predictions and the things that I'm seeing and how that might play out. And I'll give a whole list of further dates where that's going to be reactivated, and how it's going to affect each and every one of the 12 signs in depth. I wanted to really take a lot of time to put into it, so I've tried to create content that's going to be available for you guys on my channel for free. But if there's something that you want to learn more about, or if you want to know exactly how to prepare for this globally, and how it's going to help you upgrade your life, do consider checking that out. I'll have the link soon. But we start feeling the conjunction really when it's within about 5 degrees. So that's why I started putting out content recently on the channel. And the North Node is something that is mysterious. We can't see it. We don't see it coming. It's talking about the direction that we're going in our lives. And, you know, I reflect on like when the North Node was in the sign of Cancer. This was a couple years ago, more than a couple years ago. And when that North Node was in Cancer, how it was putting all of this emphasis on our homes and our family. And it was right around the time that like the 2020 stuff started beginning, and we found that we were in our homes a lot. Many people reconnected with family, many people moved, so many people renovated, sometimes people moved back home. So that North Node in Cancer made sense because it needed us to get reconnected to our inner emotional security. Then the North Node moved into Gemini, and the last several years we saw the North Node in Gemini putting an emphasis on Zoom meetings, FaceTime calls, upgrades in internet stuff, anything in regards to which media we're watching, which news channel. And it got everybody talking about what ended up being two very different sides or two different perspectives in the news. Now we have the North Node in the sign of Taurus, so it's going to bring up the themes of what we've been building on. We get home, we learn how to communicate, we meet our neighbors. Now in Taurus, it's where is our money? Where is our food coming from? How do we get back down to basics? And I'm going to be talking a lot about this in my webinar, and how the North Node Uranus conjunction is helping prepare us for learning how to be more sustainable in some ways, or going deeper into the future and kind of upgrading our power supplies, our food, and where our food is coming from, and just a lot. There's a lot going on there. So, you know, the North Node Uranus, we start feeling this strong kind of revolution that's brewing. And those of you guys who have obviously any planets between like 15 and 20 degrees of the fixed signs, you're feeling this, especially Taurus and Scorpio, sun, moon, and risings. What's nice is that technically it's loose, but we do see that there is a sextile from these planets that are in Cancer to the North Node Uranus. So Cancer is saying, hey, this is what I'm emotionally focusing on. You know, this is what I really need more of. I'm scared to set these new intentions. I don't know how to move into this new phase. And Taurus is saying, I got your back. We can make changes. We can build towards the future. We can create stability. We're just going to have to make some change. And whenever we see planets that are conjunct the North Node, especially outer planets like Uranus, you know, this only happens every so often. I think the last time we said that this was going on, I want to say was in 2008, I believe. So it doesn't happen all that often. There is ripple effects that will go on throughout the world where everybody is having to kind of upgrade and evolve and move further into the future, Uranus. So I want you guys to know that this moon in many ways is building off of some of the shakeups that we have been having since Taurus season. Some of the shakeups that we've been having since the solar eclipse that we had in Taurus, which was about exactly almost a couple degrees sextile from this new moon. So if you think back to what was changing in April and May and what was upgrading and where there was a lot of action, now Cancer is saying, okay, let me nurture this. You know, let's focus on really taking care and really honing in on this aspect of our life. Then we've also got Mercury in Gemini, so lovely placement here. Mercury is in a sign that it is very fond of, and Mercury is having conversations with Saturn in Aquarius, so we're seeing the build of an air trine. Saturn can be cranky, there's no doubt about it, but when we see trines happening to Saturn, generally it's very harmonious, and to some extent it's insinuating that we're laying solid plans for the future, but we have to talk about it, right? It's where we're talking about going, what we're thinking about reading, the plans that we're making in regards to travel, the new languages that we're learning. This is going to be a really productive period, and in spite of some of the lunar transits that are going to be happening days after this and the Mars square Pluto, when in doubt, talk it out. That's something I've been saying to my clients all year long, letting you guys know that the trines, especially at the end of June going into early July, are really helping us communicate when things get difficult or when things get scary, right? So just know that that's going to be incredibly helpful for us moving forward. We'll see that trine build over about a period of a couple days. Saturn is time. Saturn is also limitation, responsibility, karma. So there's something that's going on in the Gemini area of our life that's saying, is there another option? Is there another way? Is it possible for us to have more serious conversations? Can we put this in writing? That kind of stuff is going to start setting up for us as well. And, we do see, Mercury kind of building into a sextile also with Mars and Chiron. It's kind of leaving the sextile with Chiron, but it's going into the sextile with Mars. So we're going to see communication speed up and a lot of having to kind of act on our feet, right? Having to move more quickly. Remember, as Uranus conjuncts the North Node as well, which we'll be seeing at the end of July, we need to pivot. And I can't remember where I heard this. I heard somebody talking about this on another Astro Talk recently, but they were saying that even though the Saturn-Uranus squares are really stressful because Saturn says, like, toughen up, like commit, buckle down, get serious, and it's in a Saturn sign, the squares to Uranus and Taurus is like it's kind of keeping Uranus in check. And Uranus wants to kind of wig out and it wants to freak out, and where Saturn is it's kind of saying, like, no, hold strong. So usually when we see squares between Saturn and Uranus, there is this stress going on between what is tried and true versus new innovative things. And Uranus can kind of go up and down, left and right, side to side. It's kind of all over the place. So I think the Saturn-Uranus squares is, even though they're really annoying, and you think back to what was going on the end of last year, it is making sure that we can bend without breaking. Even though Uranus is about to be the star of the show in the end of July going into August, there's going to be a real emphasis on where we are updating and upgrading and kind of going into the future in many ways. And we'll see the return of the squares, and Saturn's going to help us stabilize and kind of integrate that. So that you're going to start feeling that more, I guess, is basically what I'm getting at. And then we've also got, and it's a loose sextile. Oh no, I talked about this. So I talked about the fact that the Uranus, North Node is in a sextile to the Sun and the Moon. But, the nodes are connected to the Moon. So, one thing that's interesting is that you see with the Moon being in a sextile to its own node is, okay, whatever we've started putting into motion, whatever we're actually doing, whatever the plans are, we're gonna water that emotionally, I think just to kind of wrap this up, so I make sure that I get everything kind of out there for you. Be careful with fear, and be careful with reacting out of fear, and be careful with emotionally getting a little hysterical and jumping into situations that can be where you're in over your head, or you're getting aggressive, or you're perhaps, challenging something or someone. There is a tendency for people to be extremely patriotic. I'm going to keep saying that, to almost to a point of where it's discriminatory towards other people, whether that's where they're from or their beliefs. And I'm hoping that this doesn't materialize as like casting out certain groups or individuals as a result of some intense stuff that's going on in the world. We saw this with like 9/11, where we saw a great deal of people who were, obviously Middle Eastern, who were terrorized as well equally, and being called out on the street and called terrible names and not allowed to enter into certain positions in government. We have also seen this in recent years in light of the COVID virus where, you know, there's been lots of people who have been picking on and threatening and bullying Asian Americans and various other people of those backgrounds. And something about this makes me feel like we're going to see something similar. So I don't want Americans, especially, getting all stirred up over, oh, we're under attack and, you know, everybody's out to get us, you know, like something of that sense I kind of feel like is coming. Now, let me also now pull up, I want to show you guys here the transits. There we go. That are going to be happening just after the new moon. So let me change this around a little bit. Just briefly after, we then see that the moon is going to come into right around here. It's going to come into a square with Mars. So this will be on the early morning of the 30th. And I bring this up only because it's hard for me not to look at the new moon without showing you how, like, the lunar, immediately, like, the lunar transits are going to start activating that chart. The moon square Mars is like emotional tension and frustration and getting aggravated. We're going to have the sun that is then going to be at an 8, which is also going to be kind of fear related. And then the moon will oppose Pluto. So right after the new moon, there's going to be things that are going to bring up, that are going to come up, that are going to bring up some kind of like frustration and fear and tension. Then the next couple of days, we see that Mars, Pluto square perfect. We are then going to see the moon go into Leo, making the opposition to Saturn, the square to Uranus, and the square to the South Node. I've talked about this in previous videos. I like tracking when the moon goes through Leo because it's going to give us a little bit of insight as to what we're working through or what kind of huge shift we're all going through in Leo season later this summer. Then we are going to see, obviously, the ingress of Mars into Taurus. I'll talk about that later. When we come into the third quarter square around July 7th, and it'll be a little bit before that even, the moon opposed Jupiter, big emotions, reactions, and then the moon coming into square with Pluto and also the sun. So this is a really jam-packed lunar cycle, like beyond belief. And finally, you know, like the finale is going to be when the moon moves into Capricorn, and we have this full moon that's going to be in Capricorn on July 13th. Looks like that's happening around 21 degrees, very close to Pluto, right? So it's going to be a very intense moon. And at the time, because that's a Capricorn moon, we're seeing the effects of the Saturn square, the nodes, the Saturn square Uranus even more so strongly. But it will be the fact that the sun in Cancer is getting ready to form a final opposition. I call this like the boss battle, like the final boss battle. The sun in Cancer will form a final opposition to Pluto, which means something has to be killed off, something has to die off, something has to change, something that's bringing up issues revolving around the axis of the 4th and the 10th, or home and family versus responsibility, parenting stuff, our personal lives at home versus our career, our home versus what, you know, the authorities at large are telling us we can or cannot do. And that will be when the sun reaches about 27 degrees. So there's going to be that sun conjunction as well. So a lot of people are talking about this. I'm anticipating, watch the housing market. The housing market, oh boy. I mean, you're going to hear something. It's going to be at a 27, and with Mercury being there as well, with the squares to what will be then the moon in Aries on the 18th, 19th, going into the early hours of the 20th, is going to trigger something relating to, once again, these topics. Now, obviously, it's done once that lunar cycle's done, once we have that full moon in Capricorn, then we're going to be preparing for the new moon in Leo. But yeah, you know, and I would say this anyway with some of the North Node Uranus stuff that's coming. And I'll talk a lot about this in my webinar, but it's a time to really make sure that we are looking out for our homes and our families, that we are making sure we're safe, we're nurtured, we're putting ourselves to bed, we're tucking ourselves in, we're hugging and kissing our kids and our family members. We are learning that sometimes strength is not about physical reaction. Strength can be about emotional strength. Strength can be about teaching other people right from wrong, standing up for other people who may not have support and may have their rights trampled. As much as I hate to say that, but that's kind of the feeling that I'm getting with some of these transits. So, going back to the new moon, obviously I am going to read you really quickly the Sabian symbol for this. If you guys have not seen my handy dandy book, Screen of Prophecy. Okay. So I like to use the Sabian symbols because sometimes they manifest quite literally, but it's also just going to give us a little bit of like food for thought or something that we can kind of meditate on in the midst of this new moon. Amazing ways also to be able to work with this moon. Just find a quiet space, get into a quiet space, clear an area of your house, clean your home up, focus on relaxing, eating a nourishing meal, making your bed, all of those things, taking a bath, soaking, working with the element of water, staying hydrated, all of that stuff, okay? All right, so Sabian symbol, Screen of Prophecy, Cancer 8. And we're doing 8 because we're rounding up because it's 7 and change, but you can read 7 as well. All right, rabbits dressed in clothes on parade. The theme is let's pretend. The symbol speaks to the aspiration and ambition and to the necessity that an individual's everyday experience contribute in some manner to the formulation and clarification of his value system. The image of rabbits dressed in clothes on parade emphasizes the importance of imagination, experimental role play, and mental rehearsal in the achievement of practical goals. Whatever can be articulated or dramatized in some way can become tangible reality. Here the rabbits are creating the reality they hope to establish for themselves. Unwavering self-confidence and ever-continuing upliftment of those into a broader and higher levels of accomplishment. Watch for wishful thinking and a tendency to make up stories or fabricate the truth rather than admit to failure or exert effort to make a dream come true. The accent is on ambition. The desire to fulfill a dream may lead you to some concrete achievement or an important goal that you have previously abandoned. Your greatest advantage lies in living in your ideals, experiment, role play, and rehearse. Guard against being fooled by appearances. Don't believe everything you hear. Just because someone says something doesn't mean that it is. Avoid stretching the truth, exaggerating, and don't make claims that you can't substantiate. Wow. I'm interested to see how this materializes, to be honest with you, because I think that that's a really great warning with the squares to Jupiter, that things can be magnified, that can be, kind of us getting hysterical and reacting in a way or rushing into a situation in that regard. Cancer 7 talks about 2 fairies on a moonlit night. It's about unifying magic, granting a wish, self-realization, magic. I would say that anyway with like an 8. So if you're somebody who like wants to do some kind of herbal magic, water magic, anything in that regard, definitely a good time. I would say, building off of what it was talking about in regards to like role playing and stuff, it can also be about getting into a sense of manifestation and really focusing on like, well, how does it feel? So think about where this is happening in your chart. We're going to get into it in a second, but how does it feel? How does it feel to, graduate from that degree? How does it feel to meet that person that is going to be your other half? How does it feel to get the raise? But think of it more in a sense of emotionally, right? What is the emotional feeling? Are you excited? Are you happy? Are you relieved because you know that everything's going to be okay and it's going to kind of settle down and that the pieces are going to fall into place? These are things that I would really kind of reflect on, in the midst of this new moon. And I'm excited to see what happens. I know that even though, the end of June going into really like mid-July, it's a really nice time period where I feel like it's going to be a lot more stable than it has been the last 2 months. And you guys really want to use this to be able to wish big, think big, dream big, but in order to get there, Cancer teaches us that we have to build a solid foundation before we can achieve the dreams that we're hoping to achieve in the 10th house. Jupiter Aries is just the motivation, it's the philosophy, it's the routine, and the willingness, I think, to hold ourselves accountable and be pushing our getting out of our comfort zone, right? And kind of going to like new heights in some ways. So hopefully that's helpful. I am now going to get into each and every one of the 12 houses. So get ready, you can pull your chart out and we will take a look. All right, so let's go ahead and begin with Aries and Aries rising. Aries, this is going to be a new moon in Cancer that is taking place in your natal 4th house. Now, the 4th house is all about home, family, and roots. But I think that this new moon is going to be for you about building new emotional foundations, focusing on going deep and back to your roots, whether that's your lineage, studying your family history, returning home, or anything in regards to new homes or home searches. So you can be finding your own space. You can be redefining what it means to have family. So if you're looking to move, if you're looking to reorganize, cleanse your house, anything like that, this is a wonderful time to be doing this during this new moon. Now the card that I got for you is the Magician. So it does seem like a magical time. There is a sense of when this card comes up, as above, so below. So maybe you're manifesting a new space. Maybe you're just manifesting a new emotional kind of frame of mind. This can be a time also where you're just focusing on being able to shift energy. So if you have been feeling like very overwhelmed with some of the changes going on in your life recently, this is basically saying that you have the will, the desire, the ability, and you're very resourceful. So if you're trying to make some situation happen in regards to positive changes emotionally or within your physical home space, find a way to be able to ritualize doing this. The moon is also at home in the 4th house, so I think that this is a little extra potent for you if you're just also trying to focus on starting a family, like I said, getting a new home or organizing a home, but you need to put like a little bit of like a magic touch on it, okay? Now we have Taurus and Taurus rising. This is a new moon in Cancer taking place in your natal 3rd house. Similar kind of to Cancer because the 4th and the 3rd house both deal with like moves or home or movement. This can be setting intention for possible future moves, more short distance travel. Some of you guys may opting to be getting a new vehicle. Maybe you have to go out of town soon. There's going to be a lot more emphasis on communication, but communicating with family and speaking from the heart. So it can be that you're talking to aunts, uncles, cousins more. It can be that you are focusing more on journaling and reflecting on your emotions so that way you can communicate better. And if you are hoping to start a new program, especially if you want to be learning from home or doing like a distance education program or something like that, this is a wonderful time to get that going as well. The card that I got for you is the 8 of Wands. So it's about energy moving very quickly. Maybe there's some excitement revolving around family coming into town, you spending time with other family members, lots of action, rapid movement, change. I think that maybe you're realizing that you may be moving faster than you anticipated. You may be having family suddenly kind of drop in and come and visit, but it's a positive aspect. You know, Cancer makes sextiles to your placement in Taurus. So I feel like there's family there if you need to communicate or if you need to place a phone call and like kind of just like vent to someone, or if you need to get out of town and visit family for whatever reason. It does seem like it'll be a quick trip, but it'll be a positive one. Now we've got Gemini and Gemini rising. This is a new moon taking place in your natal 2nd house. Now this is all about money, resources, spending powers. But I feel like you're setting intentions revolving around resources and money, obviously, but also emotional security. The 2nd house is where we feel stable, where we feel secure. It's also about self-esteem. Maybe you're learning to invest in yourself more. Maybe you're realizing that you have strong feelings revolving around money and that your financial situation affects your mood or your emotional state. So there may be a need for you to feel like you need to kind of nurture your self a little bit more so that way you can be more present for making some pretty significant financial decisions. Gemini, this is the one new moon you get every time at this point in the year where you can do some money magic manifestation intentions, especially if you're like, I want to buy a home, I want to drum up more money so I can get a down payment, so I can have my own space. There may be a need of feeling like you need to have more money for family purposes. So it can be just, getting your mortgage paid down, getting bills paid, being able to grow a garden. So if you're wanting to do any manifestational work around money, this is the time to do it and focus on, like I said, setting intentions revolving around how you feel about resources, not letting money define whether or not you feel safe or secure, and investing in yourself. So the card that I get is the Two of Cups. To me, this kind of makes you feel like you have help or there's somebody who's assisting you. It can be maybe somebody says, I'll help you pay for it. Somebody says, well, I'll help you invest in something. Two of Cups can be a card that's about relationship. It's about mutual attraction, somebody who can kind of benefit you, close bonds, whether it's family or a relationship. Usually this is more romantic though. So I'm wondering if this is like you talking with a partner about, okay, how can we get ahead? How can we bring more in? Especially if finances have been a really sensitive subject in recent months. It's giving you the opportunity to hit the restart button and focus on getting support, not just for yourself, but for another person. Then we have Cancer and Cancer rising. This is obviously your show. A new moon in your sign, I always say, like, new moon, new you. There is something to that, but this one is a little different because this new moon has that real strong aspect to Jupiter. And I feel like in so many ways, it's about you embracing a new sense of authority, right? So the new moon in your first house, you might want to make body changes. You might decide that you want to go back to the gym. You might be focusing on not anything physical or diet related, just really taking better care of your emotional health. And feeling like if you need to rest, if you need to recuperate, if you need to be emotional, if you need to unwind, you can. But I want you to focus on the body, what your body is telling you. Those squares to Jupiter and Aries is about embracing new authority in your life. So it can feel like a fresh start and feeling your way through a new sense of responsibility. For some Cancer risings, it's like, I have a new job, so I got to take care of my health. I got to be all there. For other Cancer risings, it's like, it's all on me. I have a new job position, so now I have to kind of be running around and a little bit more active. Some of you guys have been undergoing some real issues in relationships and realizing that you are the boss of your own life. So it's about time that you start treating yourself like you are the boss and allowing yourself the freedom to make decisions without feeling guilty, because there can be a sense of feeling guilty. On the flip side, with this new moon conjunct Lilith, you can be very emotional, very intense, and you want to watch out for feeling like you're having meltdowns because you don't have control over certain areas of your life. So if you feel like you don't have control over your career, there can be like lots of volatile emotional explosions going on. And it's really important to just get into this flow of like listening to your body and what your body is telling you and reminding yourself that you are safe, you're secure, you're good. The card I get for you is the Three of Wands. So this is a card that comes up that's like about awaiting results. This can be a card that's also about new horizon, growth, foresight, a milestone. So perhaps maybe you're setting new intentions for where you want to be in 3 months, where you want to be in 6 months, where you want to be in a year. These are good kind of markers, maybe in the immediate next 2 weeks. So you see how things kind of happen over the next lunar cycle as we move from a new moon in your sign to a full moon in Capricorn, which will be your 7th house. That makes me feel like you're not allowing other people to deem whether or not you're worthy or you're good enough. And there can be a sense of you feeling like you don't want to be waiting for other people, right? So that's the other way that I would kind of look at this. So watch for getting stuck in waiting for other people to tell you when to go, where to go. Focus on your own expansion and not feeling limited. Okay, so now we've got Leo and Leo rising, and this is a new moon in Cancer that is taking place in your natal 12th house. So your 12th house, the sun is 12 houses from your either ascendant or your sun. So this is this natural winding down because you're actually getting ready to come into your birthday time, Leo. This can be a time where you're feeling like you need to retreat, okay? New moons in general, we want quiet space. We want to feel like we have privacy, but when it's a new moon in your 12th house, you feel probably a little moody and feeling quiet, and you're preparing for your new year. You may be focusing on healing or therapy or meditation or anything in regards to like past life regression. There may be a sense of you feeling like a little bit like you want to hide out. The astrology is going to be quite intense in July and in August for you. So my advice is book yourself a spa day, take some time off, rest, sleep in, recuperate. If that means you want to spend a couple days having a staycation, if that means you want to turn your phone off or be on airplane mode, so be it. You do need a little bit of privacy, and you need to pamper and nurture yourself, because I do think that there are some very big things on the horizon for you as a result of this new moon. And then pretty soon it's going to be your birthday. So do something that is going to be quiet. And something about this makes me feel like you guys would do really well like getting a healing. So if you're into like Reiki, or if you want to get a massage, or if you want to have a spa day, or you want to do some kind of like Cancerian 12th house would be, yeah, like a massage, you know, or going in and treating yourself to like a really nourishing like home cooked meal, and getting somewhere cozy and just kind of preparing, because like I said, your new year is coming. The card that I got for you is the King of Coins. And so this is interesting because this is usually talking about like somebody who's working hard, business oriented. It can be about an earth sign male, like a father figure or a boss figure. It can be about a provider or some sense of security. It can be that somebody is giving you this in the midst of some things that are going on in your life right now. It's very protective, this energy. And it can also be about if you are focusing on your year ahead and you're strategizing and you're planning, especially when it comes to like business related stuff. I could see that as well, that you're really thinking about where you want to be next year, and you're focusing on your finances, you're focusing on your job, you're focusing on some launches. You could be getting advice. Somebody could be giving you a reading and actually talking about, you know, what the next year is going to look like. Always a wonderful time to get a reading sometime around your birthday. So now-ish, maybe into the next month, could be a really good time to do that. Stay on the lookout for people who want to help support you financially, physically, and people who are going to help you in anything in regards to being able to plan more about business-related things. Now we've got Virgo and Virgo rising. This is a new moon in Cancer in your 11th house, which is a house that's very social. It's all about friends. It's about parties, having a good time. I feel like this is going to be for you about setting intentions around your friends or family goals. Like friends can say, come over, we're having a barbecue, we're having a party. You might be feeling really emotional and feeling like you need your friends more. This is a wonderful time to set intentions revolving around nurturing your friendships, because for Virgos, like a lot of their friends feel like family, especially those of you guys who are relocated, or maybe you have like a difficult relationship with your family. So this is like a clean slate. You know, if you want to call your friends more, if you want to spend time with them more, if you haven't seen people in a while, this can be a wonderful time to do that. If you're visiting home, going back home, or if you have people moving into the city that you're living in who you've known for a while, old friends can be popping up and you can be spending more time with them. If you're wanting to join a network, right, especially anything in relating to Cancer related things like a cooking group or joint cooking classes with other people, if you want to learn more about the industry of real estate, this can also be a wonderful time to do that. But I just have a feeling that there's going to be like much more like entertaining or being around friends in some capacity as a result of this new moon. The card that I got for you is, oh, there we go. Oh, interesting card, the Death card. So it can be talking about like a rebirth, right? And certainly this makes sense because there is this feeling with the South Node being in Scorpio for you that maybe you've lost touch with some people. Maybe you haven't like been reaching out to some people. Maybe you're disconnected from some friends and you're feeling like, you know, there's some people that you want to let go and other people you want to touch base with. This is about new beginnings, so this is not a bad card. The Death card can be symbolic. It can be big changes. It can be transformation, transition, endings. So perhaps maybe there's like big things going on where like friends are getting married, having kids, moving away, buying houses, other places, saying goodbye. If there's anything going on like that, you definitely want to be there to kind of celebrate that, because it's going to help them with that transition, but it's also going to help you bring in new people yourself. For Libra and Libra rising, you've got a new moon that's going to be taking place, and this is in your natal 10th house. This is all about your career, but it goes a little bit beyond that. The 10th house isn't limited to career, because Cancer does deal with home and family responsibility. Sometimes for a parent can come up here. or just much more emphasis on how you're nurturing and taking care of your professional goals. So I think you're setting goals about how you nurture your career, right? If you're thinking about expanding, if you're thinking about spending more time at work, if you're thinking about anything in regards to parenting needs, caring for your occupation, new jobs, taking care of parents, these are all things that can come up. I think I said this earlier in the video, but like Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, this is very strong for you guys, especially if you're anywhere around like the first 10 degrees of the cardinal sign, so you're going to feel a square. Libra, it seems like it's about finding the balance between your relationship with yourself, other people, and your career. You know, there can be other people coming in who want to partner with you. There can be new professional relationships. There can also be big expansion going on in your personal relationships. And those of you Libras who are getting more serious in relationships, thinking about getting married, settling down, I could see some of you guys being like, okay, what do we need to do, you know, professionally to be able to facilitate expanding home, having a family, all of that stuff. So it does feel optimistic and positive, but it almost feels like life is coming at you very quickly, and that you're being pushed to think more about your long-term goals when it comes to your career and possible like parenting stuff. So watch for that. If you're looking for a new job, this is an interesting time to watch, because applying for jobs or launches or anything in regards to work should be pretty successful within this lunar transit. The card that I got for you is the Four of Wands. So this is a card that does talk about marriage. This is a card that talks about celebration, harmony, family, friends, stability, right? Belonging, which is interesting because it means that you could be celebrating professional accomplishments with friends or family. You could be having a big celebration and a launch and a party. Like, you want to do these things after a new moon, obviously, but I think the next month is going to be really telling from the new moon to the full moon, because it's going to give you some insight as to, is there a healthy balance with your home and your family life? What do you have to celebrate? Where can you give yourself a pat on the back? And the possibility of real stability happening, either emotionally or quite literally in regards to your career. Very positive for you, Libra. Now we've got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. So we have a new moon in a fellow sister sign. It's happening in Cancer, and it's in your 9th house. So when you have a new moon that's in the same element as you experience a trine. Now that'll either be to your sun, moon, or rising. A 9th house new moon is about long-term planning. Where do I want to go to school? Where do I want to live? What is my belief system? What's my philosophy? There can be new opportunities for family planning, legal or educational goals, and perhaps maybe some changes revolving around your beliefs about life, right? That's kind of the feeling that I'm getting, because we are seeing squares happening from Jupiter, so that's happening in your 6th house. To me, it seems like you might feel like there's delays possibly with legal stuff, but that's because you're kind of finally combing through things, or you're kind of setting your schedule on your own. You might feel the pressure of being like, I want to hurry up and go on a trip, or I want to hurry up and start the program or graduate. I want to hurry up and move. And I would say try to balance these energies out. There's no need to rush, especially when you're making long-term educational or legal plans. Delays can happen with traveling, but I would say I think with Lilith's conjunction, I think it's like you're addressing any fears you may have in regards to like parenting, any fears that you may have in regards to whether or not you could go back to school, whether or not you could change your beliefs. But for the most part, it's positive, right? Because Cancer says we need to emotionally nurture. It's going to make aspects to your Scorpio placements which say life is fluctuating, things are changing. And the card that I got for you is so wonderful. You get the Ace of Cups. Now, this is about love. This is about your philosophy about love and relationships. New relationships, compassion, new emotions, a spiritual awakening. It's about deeper feelings, intimacy. I'm wondering for some of you guys, it's like shifting the way that you look at like possibly like marriage, because the 9th house can deal with ceremonies, and whether or not you see like yourself believing in these things or moving forward into more serious spiritual or divine union. It can be that you're shifting the way that you want to feel, right? Ace of Cups is saying, I'm turning over a new leaf. I want to feel different. So you might have to add a little bit more of like some spirituality or some ritual or something into your life. Touching base with like a guru or a mentor or a spiritual advisor can be really helpful when you're having a new moon in the 9th, because it can really help you shift your emotions and embrace change in a more positive way. For Sag and Sag rising, you've got a new moon in Cancer taking place in your natal 8th house. The 8th house deals with intimacy, it deals with psychological triggers, sometimes it deals with losses, but it's a house that is about regeneration, so endings and beginnings, life and death, my resources and your resources. So it's about karmic entanglement. I think with a new moon in this part of your chart, it's about healing anything around intimacy, right? So if there's intimacy issues, if there's fear of vulnerability, if there's fear of merger, if you're just getting back into dating, this can be something that you can be working through, taking action in regards to tackling debt, home loans, or any hangups that you have with a family figure, specifically your mother or your mother's side. There can be some like trauma coming up in regards to your relationship with your mother and fears revolving around mothering. I would say that, you know, Cancer kind of rubs you a little bit the wrong way, Sag. So there is a sense of sometimes you getting temperamental when you're feeling vulnerable when you have transits through the sign of Cancer. The whole next month, you're going to have the sun go through this part of your chart, and it is going to be making trines to Neptune in your 4th and also the South Node in your 12th. So it can be saying there's changes and transformations in the home base, right, within the family, how you guys are handling money and resources, or just working through issues with family members if they're experiencing grief or loss. The card that I get is the 9 of Coins. Looks like you're going to handle it like a boss, though. I mean, this is a card that's like, you know what? I've got savings. I'm fine. I'm secure. I'm self-sufficient. So I'm not really getting the vibe that like this is a new moon that's like crisis oriented. Granted, you got some heavy hitting transits coming pretty soon. 2 weeks time, you have a full moon in your 2nd house of income, and also in about a week or so, we're going to start seeing Mars come into a square with Pluto in your 2nd. So you want to be careful about how you're spending, and just because you have it, not blowing it. You also want to be careful about being too independent, right? The stress that you may have from being successful and capable of doing it on your own. But part of the 8th house intimacy stuff is about learning how to ask for assistance and help, not always financially, but emotionally saying, hey, I'm having a tough time. I could really use like somebody to talk to, right? So watch for becoming too hyper independent. Make sure that you are also super tuned into anything in regards to, like I said, tackling debt. But I don't really feel like that's going to be an issue with the card that came up. Then we've got Cap and Cap rising. You got a new moon in Cancer. Now this new moon is going to be in your natal 7th house of relationships. So it's in your opposite sign. And boy, oh boy, you're going to see a lot going on that's like about other people and you in the next 2 weeks, right? A new moon in the 7th followed by 2 weeks time, a full moon in your 1st is going to be how you're leaning more into relationships, focusing on relationships, how it pushes you to evolve and move through old outdated ways of being. I bet you're excited to get Pluto out of your sign pretty soon. Hot stuff going on between sun squares with Jupiter in your 4th and also just watching Mars in your 4th come into a square with Pluto. So there's definitely a lot of back and forth with other people. The way that I see this playing out is just new relationship opportunities. If you're single and you're looking, set these intentions, right? But be mindful that you can't be in relationships with people who manipulate you or make you feel bad about standing in your power. That's the one thing that I would say to watch for, you know, just with Lilith's conjunction. The darker side of Lilith can be using like emotional manipulation or guilt to kind of push you into something or nudge you into something, especially when it comes to nurturing abilities. So I don't want to see you feeling like you have to get in a relationship with somebody just because you don't want to be alone, only to get involved and then realize they're taking advantage or they're guilting you and making you feel bad about having boundaries. Pluto in your 1st. So there's going to be a lot you're going to learn about this. Fresh starts in current existing relationships. I think it can give you the ability to go a little bit deeper. I feel like with the square to Jupiter, it's really pushing you to be more emotional, be more open. If you're being pushed to like live with somebody new or live with family, I could see that coming up for you as well. Fresh starts all around. Also, 2 of Cups. Okay, so it is about relationships. I mean, many people would say that with a new moon in the 7th, but it can take a full several months for this to kind of fully develop. I feel like if you're looking for people in other places, you might find someone. If you're moving, you might find someone. But there may be somebody who's offering you the gift of partnership and relationship we're still going to see, you know, Venus go into your 7th house soon, also in a couple weeks time. So there's going to be a lot of action going on in the relationship zone. Somebody new may be coming, or you're just going to be getting more support. For Aquarius and Aquarius rising, you've got a new moon in Cancer happening in your natal 6th house. Now, this is a opportunity to set the slate clean, basically, or wipe it clean, to set new intentions revolving around health, healing, and organization. When I say organization, it's because the 8th house can be about organizing, and Cancer can be your mental health, your diet. It can be getting your house cleaned up. We're also seeing that there are positive aspects happening from Jupiter, which is hanging out in your 3rd house, and it's squaring. So I'm wondering, do you need to move? So are you like clearing and decluttering? Are you having somebody come into town who's like, you know, removing stuff from your house? Are they picking things up from your house? Are you having a garage sale? Is there a sense of like having a sibling or a family member coming and helping you clear this stuff out? It's possible. If you're wanting to prioritize your emotional health, if you're wanting to focus on new health or fitness routines, this is a wonderful time to do it as well. I like the fact that you've also got some action going on in your 4th house in Taurus that's sextiling this. So a lot's happening within the home, whether you're, you know, cleaning things up, organizing it, or you're making the decision that you're renovating, you're making plans, there's some kind of moving things around in the space. Lots of busyness at home. But for the most part, I think it's going to be wonderful for setting new intentions and just feeling organized. Like, I don't know about you, but for me, it's like I can't start a new habit until I've got everything under control. Like, my office has to be organized. My things need to be put away. If I'm going to be starting a new diet routine, I need to have all the supplements. I need to have my, you know, kitchen cleaned out. It's kind of the feeling that I'm getting with some stuff that's going on with this new moon for you. Wonderful that you're getting the Wheel of Fortune. It's saying fortunate situations, being on the move, expansion, good things coming. This can also be just like feeling like you're needing to organize your schedule more so you can have time at home, especially if you're trying to plan a move or if you're out of the house and you're going back and forth between places. The Wheel of Fortune can be talking about like actually, you know, finding a way to be able to get all of the things in that you want to do. And last but not least, we have Pisces and Pisces rising. So we have a new moon in the sign of Cancer. It's a sister water sign, which means it's making positive, harmonious trines to your placements in Pisces. Now, a new moon is taking place in your 5th house, which is romantic. It is great for new ideas, new projects, dating, love, all kinds of things. But I got to tell you, Cancer is very fertile. It's a water sign, right? And it's make aspects to your ascendant if you're Pisces rising, which is your body. So you can be feeling very romantic. You can be feeling very artistic. You might want the paint and the wine and the music. You may be feeling also like you're either falling in love or feeling as if you're more so open to heart-centered relationships. Pregnancy is very possible when you have a new moon in the 5th house. It's very fertile, and when it's in the sign of Cancer, it's doubly, and then trine your ascendant. Oh boy. I would say just be mindful of that. If you're not looking to find love, if you're not looking to get pregnant, if you're just wanting to say, I want to be creative, use this new moon to do that. Create some creative space in your home. Reorganize a drawer, clear out a closet, find some space in your kitchen, bust out anything that's going to allow you to be creative with cooking, with sewing, anything in regards to clothing, anything in regards to painting or working with younger people. You know, the new moon in the 5th can bring you an opportunity to just work with younger people. So if you're in the line of work as like a teacher or just working with youth in general, this can be a very harmonious time. If you're self-employed and you're wanting to launch something, this can be a really good time for you as well. The card that I get is, the 8 of Pentacles. So I'm wondering if this is about you working hard on a skill, on a hobby, something that you're trying to launch, something that you're trying to turn into a business. I'm getting the impression that it is something that you need to perfect, because this is about craftsmanship, you know, really developing a skill, committing expertise, having high standards. Perhaps maybe, you know, within the next 2 weeks, you really start to see that come full circle, and then you're showing it to other people and asking them what they think. But this can also just be about really focusing on being able to get to a point where if you are self-employed or if you have a creative project, you don't want to just create, you want to make money. Like, you want something to be substantial to come from this. So keep working hard on that, whatever that is. It looks like it's going to end up doing very well. I hope you guys enjoyed this video on the new moon in Cancer. Let me know, where is it taking place in your chart? How is it aspecting things for you? How are you feeling with the conjunctions to Lilith? Are you a natal Cancer, sun, moon, or rising? What are your intentions? And I've had a couple people who have commented. Let me pull my list up here, who really like it when I give crystal and herbal recommendations for Cancer. So let me grab that. There we go. Okay. So for my crystal recommendations for you guys, because it's ruled by the moon, it can be any stones that are really associated with the moon. I like to use moonstone. You can use calcite. Blue calcite is good. So is green, pink, or peach. I also like to use opal or selenite. So if you're a rock hound, that's something that you like to use. Let me pull up my herbal list too. Okay. Should have had this up. Sorry, guys. Here we go. Perfect. Sage, aloe, lemon, lemon balm, bay, parsley. That's pretty much everything that I have for that, but Cancer is the element of water. So any water rituals, bathing, cleansing, anything that you can do in the kitchen, kitchen magic, things that you can like whip up and you can actually eat. That can be a wonderful way. Also integrating some kind of magical stuff into your private life, your routine within your home. My favorite thing to do, just because this new moon is always right around the summer solstice, at least here in the northern hemispheres, like I said, I like to cleanse my home. So whether you're adding a little bit of fresh lemon or some salt or some magic oils or anything like that to a bucket and you want to mop, you always want to first sweep or vacuum all of the house out from the back, all the way out the front door. If you live in an apartment, it doesn't matter, same thing. Open up all the windows, use whatever incense that you like to burn or smudge, and then I would clean and actually mop the floors and wipe down all the counters from the back out the front. Clear everything out the front door, sweep the porch, and you're good to go. And especially with this new moon, because it's going to be so intense the couple days post with some of the squares between the moon and Pluto and Mars, and then Mars squaring Pluto. It can be a wonderful time to decompress and release emotions, because when we see the squares between the moon and Pluto, things come up because they've been repressed, you know? Try to wear white, lighter colors, anything that is connected to the moon, silver, even sheer. You can do khaki, things like that. That's fine. And we want to kind of refrain maybe from a couple days of doing anything that's too heavily related to either Mars or Pluto, because it can bring up some wild emotions and feelings. All right, that's enough of me rambling. Have a happy new moon. I'll see all of you guys very soon. Take care.